What's up guys? In today's episode, we will explain Commando movie. In this explanation video, we will see a wonderful story about a retired special agent who led an elite unit and has left the armed forces to live in a secluded mountain home with his daughter Jenny. I hope you will all like this explanation video. If you really like this amazing explanation video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe the channel to watch the next video. So without further ado, let's move on to the main story. In the opening scene we see a garbage truck driving through the streets of a suburban neighborhood with two workers hanging on its sides. A former soldier named Lawson, who in proper 80s fashion wakes up next to a woman 9 times as attractive as him, wakes up and is surprised by the early morning arrival of the garbage truck. Thinking that the schedule has been changed, he hurriedly gets up and rushes outside with his trash. As he approaches the garbage truck, the two men reveal themselves as assassins, who then pull out the mini UEs and gun one down to death. Later on, one of the assassins, Cook, is seen in a car dealership. The owner, who is also an army veteran, is briefing him about the vehicles. Not long after Cook gets inside a vehicle, says the best thing about it is the price, and then drives away in it. After running over the owner, he then proceeds to a harbor where he keeps a close eye on a sailor named Bennett, who is another former army member. As soon as Bennett departs in the tugboat, Cook activates a remote device, causing the entire boat to detonate. The scene then cuts to a former United States Army Special Forces member named Colonel John Matrix. That's your got 'em right, John Matrix, who lives in the mountains of upstate California with his young daughter Jenny, goes through the daily chores. The father and daughter are having their breakfast when they see an army helicopter approaching. As the helicopter lands, Major General Franklin D. Kirby steps out and orders his 2 soldiers to secure the area. Franklin then meets John, who sneaks up on him, which is ridiculous because he's the size of a whale, and informs him that there is a problem. All the other members of his former unit have been killed by unknown mercenaries, and John's life is also in danger. In order to ensure he and his daughter's safety, Franklin leaves his soldiers behind. Moments after the Major General departs, a group of gunmen launches an attack on the secluded home, resulting in the deaths of the 2 soldiers who were with Franklin. Kirby literally just said they were his best guys. John somehow manages to grab his daughter and take cover within the house. He instructs his little girl to hide in her bedroom while he rushes to the shed to retrieve his rifle, armed and ready. John returns to Jenny's room, only to be confronted by another assassin named Diaz. Diaz informs him that his people have taken Jenny away and that John must cooperate with him if he wishes to see her alive, right? He says wrong, says John, and shoots Diaz in the face before pursuing the other. He rushes outside, only to discover that his Jeep has been disabled. Despite this setback, he pushes the vehicle down a hill and uses its momentum to chase after the attackers. He manages to intercept one of their vehicles, but a group of armed men overpowers him. You know it's going to be a good movie when the bad guy is wearing a hammock. They then tranquilize. A while later, John regains his consciousness and finds himself in a room chained to a table. Much to his shock, he is greeted by Bennett, who had been thought to have been killed in the tugboat explosion. It turns out that Bennett is the one behind all those killings and faked his own death to smoke out Franklin, and John Bennett claims that he's doing this for revenge because John discharged him from the army for killing civilians soon after. They are approached by a former South American dictator, Arias, who was overthrown from power by John's team. Arias blackmails John into assassinating the new president in his home country of Vald so that he can rise to power once again with his daughter's life on the line. John seemingly agrees to fulfill the demand. Afterwards, John is escorted to the airport, where he meets Henrik. This mercenary will be accompanying him throughout his mission. Upon boarding the plane, John requests that a flight attendant get him a pillow and a blanket. Seizing the right opportunity, he swiftly kills Henrik with a single elbow. John then proceeds to the plane's cargo hold and jumps from the plane just as it's taking off. I'm sorry, but do you see that was some? It's an 11-hour flight, which means that John has 11 hours to find a ruse and free his daughter. His first lead brings him to Sully, one of Ares's men, who had come to drop him off at the airport earlier. Sully is currently seen talking to Ares on the phone, informing him of the flight's departure. After the call, he heads to his vehicle, unaware that John is tailing him in the parking lot. John requires the assistance of an off-duty flight attendant named Cindy. He rips the seat out of her car so that he can sit more comfortably, and he instructs her to follow Sully's car drive. Shortly after they arrive at a shopping mall, John confides in Cindy about his situation and requests her help. He urges her to approach Saul and seduce him so that he can extract information about Eris's whereabouts. Although Cindy initially pretends to be cooperative, she ultimately reports John to a mall security guard, addressing him as a kidnapper. You know he is the guard. He then calls for backup, and a group of guards confront him. As a result, a physical altercation ensues between them in the midst of the chaos. Sully notices John and rushes to a pay phone to inform his boss, but before he can make the call, John rips off the wires and destroys the entire booth. He just shakes it until all the glass falls out, and Sue's too scared to shoot his gun at him, so he just lifts it over his head. Then the security guards surround John, earning Sully enough time to run away, but despite this, he fights them off, throws them all away like he's the Hulk, and then he runs after Sully. One of the guards tries to shoot him, but Cindy, who has realized her mistake I guess after she's seen him beat a ton of cops up, pushes him down the stairs before fleeing in the next scene. John pursues Sully to the parking lot, where Cindy also joins him. A lengthy car chase ensues during this. Cindy, who is completely frazzled by what's happening, fires off a barrage of questions, but John remains solely focused on driving. She says, "Aren't you going to explain this to me?" And John says no. The chase eventually ends when Sully's car flips over while the other two crash into a pole. John then walks over to Sully and retrieves a motel room key from his pocket. He holds him over a steep cliff, demands information on Jenny's whereabouts. Sully tries to negotiate, offering to take him to the cook, who knows everything. However, John is already aware of Sully's planned meeting with the cook at the motel, so he drops him off the cliff to his death. Following this, John and Cindy make their way to the designated motel. Drive Jenny to a villa located on a private island. They lock the little girl in a room before walking away. Later on, Aruz inquires about the remaining time until John's plane lands and whether they should anticipate any trouble. In response, Bennett reassures him, stating that there are still over 2 hours left and that John will not take any such step that will risk his daughter's life on the way to the motel. John finally reveals the entire ordeal to Cindy, also showing her Jenny's picture. He tells her that he must find his daughter before Aruz and Bennett find out that he did not carry out their job. After driving for a while, the duo arrive at the motel, use the key, and enter the designated room. They then start searching around, hoping to find any clues. A short while later, the cook arrives at the motel and knocks on their door in quick action. John turns on the shower and instructs Cindy to pretend as if she were having a good time with Sully. She then takes off her blazer and answers the door, introducing herself as Sully's date. As soon as the cook steps inside the room, John attacks him from behind. A fierce brawl ensues between the two strong guys, although the entire time it just kind of feels like a joke that this dude could get a single hide in on Schwartzy. In the midst of this, the cook reveals that he's a former Green Beret and threatens to kill him, but John appears to be awed by this revelation. As they fight, he pushes the cook through the wall, and they end up in the adjacent room, startling a woman who is pegging her boyfriend. The fight eventually comes to an end when John impales him on a table leg. As a result, the cook dies before he can reveal Jenny's location. John and Cindy then head outside to investigate Cook's vehicle. They soon come across a fuel receipt with an address for a private plane hangar. Without any delay, they take Cook's car and drive towards the hangar. Upon their arrival, John realizes that it is the same place where he woke. After getting tranquilized, he infiltrates the facility through the roof and discovers an entire operation of Rasa's rebel soldiers engaged in weapon smuggling. He hides himself from the workers and manages to sneak into the control room. After incapacitating one of the workers, he opens the window, allowing Cindy to enter through it. Upon looking around, they find a map and figure out an island in the coastal region where Jenny is being held. It's pure video game logic, and it's SLCS before heading to the island. John first stops by a surplus store, breaks into it, and equips himself with military weaponry, including firearms, explosives, and a freaking rocket launcher. Cindy takes all those weapons to the car, but John is arrested by the police before he can join her. Seeing this, Cindy follows the police van and uses the rocket launcher to whoops and fire backwards, but then again to free him from police captivity. After this, the two drive towards the nearby marina where they board a seaplane and set off for the island. Meanwhile, on the island, Villa Jenny cleverly makes an attempt to escape from the room. Jayan and Cindy landed just off the coast of the island the following morning. At the same time, the airplane lands in Vald, and Enrique's dead face is revealed. John instructs Cindy to keep trying to contact the Major General while he boards a dinghy before sailing towards the shore. She sees him without his shirt on and gives him one of those looks, like she doesn't even know how that makes her feel. He then wakes up in his battle suit, equips himself with all the weapons, and makes his way to the villa. He sets up a number of time bombs throughout the island base before moving further. Amidst this, he also kills some of Eris's soldiers on his way to the Vald airport. Eris's henchmen wait for the arrival of Jayan and Henrik. Before long, they can see a dead body being carried out on a stretcher. The men check the dead body's face and learn that it is Enrique. "I think I finally got his name right." This prompts the men to call Aruz and inform him about the same. After hearing this news, the power-hungry dictator orders Bennett to kill the little girl, but as Bennett advances towards Jenny's room, John triggers the bombs, exploding the tents and little huts surrounding the villa. After a while, Bennett somehow enters Jenny's room, only to notice that the little girl has just escaped, prompting him to chase her in the meantime. John continues to kill the hordes of Eris's troops using the rocket launcher, the rifles, and the explosives, as well as buzzsaws, and while making his way to the villa, at one point he grabs a machine gun and takes down a number of the enemies. They're all aiming straight at him, but they can't hit him, and he's aiming at nothing and killing everyone eventually. John enters the villa, where he is confronted by an armed Aruz. After a bit of a gunfight, John ultimately manages to kill him with a shot. On the other hand, Bennett follows the young girl to the basement and captures her. At the same time, John hears his daughter scream and rushes to her aid. He eventually tracks them down, but Bennett suddenly opens fire, and a bullet penetrates his right shoulder despite the injury. John taunts Bennett into a knife duel, a challenge that the latter accepts. Why the hell would anyone challenge Arnold Schwarzenegger to a knife duel? And after a lengthy and intense fight between the two former comrades, John ultimately kills Bennett by hurling a steam pipe into his chest, finally ending the battle. "Okay, Bennett, why don't you let off some steam in the aftermath?" Major General Franklin arrives at the scene and notices John walking out with his daughter, looking like the biggest movie star in the world. He then extends an offer for John to rejoin his commando unit, but our hero declines the offer, stating no chance. The movie ends as John departs the island aboard the seaplane with Jenny and Cindy. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a link to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.